Saturday rolled around, and honestly, I was dreading another afternoon that would probably end up embarrassing me. My wife, Rachel, and I had plans to hang out in the condo's shared lounge with 3 other couples. We'd be sipping beers and grabbing food off the grills, just like we'd done so many times before. The beer was always flowing, but the food was a bit of a wild card, depending on whose turn it was to bring something that week. We'd been keeping up this little tradition for about 4 months now. At first, it was all good fun, but lately, I couldn't help but notice the women seemed to be enjoying themselves a lot more than us guys, and it felt off. The other husbands didn't seem to pick up on anything strange, and for a while, I figured maybe I was just imagining things. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized something was up. Most of the time, the conversation split along gender lines, guys talking about sports, work, and whatever was going on in the world, while the women chatted about their own stuff. As the day went on, though, the conversations would kind of merge, and before long, all 8 of us would be talking together. That's when the little hints started to creep in. It was never anything obvious or in your face, but there was always this playful, sneaky vibe, usually followed by the women giggling or snickering among themselves. Over the past few weeks, I started really tuning into what was happening. All of us had moved into the condo complex around the same time. Jeff, for example, worked as a welder and was married to Nicole, who was all about fitness. Nicole was petite, brunette, and had a killer figure. She was always working out and staying in shape. Jeff, on the other hand, was a big, burly guy who sometimes seemed a little slow to catch on. They didn't really look like a couple you'd expect, but I figured love works in mysterious ways. Then there was Kevin, a cop who'd been put on permanent desk duty after getting hurt on the job. He didn't seem to mind being off patrol. His wife, Heather, was the only woman in the group who worked outside the home. Heather was a bubbly blonde who handled claims at a local insurance office. Peter worked as a mail sorter at the main post office in town. He was a quiet, easygoing guy, and his wife, Janet, was pretty much the same. Janet had shoulder-length, kind of mousy brown hair, and she kept to herself most of the time. The only time she really came out of her shell was when the women started getting silly. She wasn't unattractive, and she had a nice figure, but she just sort of faded into the background. As for me, I'm Brian. I work as a lawyer, but I only take on pro bono cases. The office I'm with is funded by a bunch of grants, so even though my clients don't pay me, I still bring home a decent paycheck. I met Rachel back in college. She's cute and lively, with short blonde hair. Up until a few weeks ago, I thought everything between us was just about perfect. Turns out, I was wrong. Right on cue, the women kicked off their usual routine. They started poking fun at Kevin, joking about how much time Heather was spending at the grocery store. They tossed out a few risque jokes about her getting a little too close to the produce, and then warned Kevin to watch out in case she got too friendly with the butcher. Everyone cracked up at Kevin's expense, even Heather. Then it was Peter's turn. The women teased him about Janet working late with her good-looking Italian boss, even hinting at some long lunch breaks. Peter didn't seem to find it funny, but Jeff and Kevin were both laughing. Janet just gave a little smile and rolled her eyes in that playful way. Jeff got it the worst, though. The 3 women went on and on about how much exercise Nicole was getting at the gym every day, saying how jealous they were. Jeff tried to laugh it off, but you could tell it stung a bit. Nicole just smiled and gave his balding head a reassuring rub, like she was letting him know everything was fine. That I could tell I was about to be the next target, but I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't going to stick around and let it happen. A couple of weeks earlier, I'd decided to dig a little deeper into what was really going on. Some mornings, I'd catch a ride to work with Jeff, which gave me the perfect opportunity to try something out. After the guys headed off to work, the women would usually gather over at Nicole's place for coffee and some morning gossip. Janet didn't join them since she had a job to get to. When it was time for me to leave, I'd swing by Jeff's place to meet up. It was easy enough to slip a voice-activated recorder on top of the kitchen buffet. I thought about putting it on the fridge, but I figured the hum might mess up the recording. After work, I'd head back to Jeff's with him and pick up the recorder. The first couple of days, all I got was harmless small talk, but I was determined to keep at it. On the third day, though, things got interesting. The first half hour of the recording was just the usual chatter about nothing special. I wanted to skip ahead, but I was worried I'd miss something important. Eventually, Nicole broke the monotony. "We need to wrap this up soon, girls. Tom-Tom's waiting, and I can't keep him hanging forever." Rachel jumped in, sounding a little envious. "Man, I wish I had someone like Pony Boy to play with. He's not huge, but he's definitely bigger than average, or at least bigger than anything I've ever seen." That got the whole table laughing. Then I heard Heather's voice. "So, Nicole, how big are we talking? 8 inches? 9? 10? Or even more?" Nicole laughed and said, "I've never actually measured, you dorks, but I'd guess around 10. Rachel couldn't help but ask, "Doesn't that hurt?" Nicole replied, "Only when he goes in the back door. I can only handle that about once a week." That sent everyone into another fit of laughter. Rachel kept the jokes going. "Today's Janet's motel day, too. I feel so left out. I don't think I can wait until tomorrow to hit the mall," she said, pretending to pout. Heather chimed in, "I still can't believe Janet got a tattoo on her but with his name on it." Rachel explained, "You have to look pretty close to see the name. It kind of blends in with the butterfly wing design." Heather asked, "How did she explain that to Peter?" Rachel answered, "She told him she got it for him." That got another round of giggles from the group. Nicole added, "So Heather and I are going to be celibate today, but we'll make up for it tomorrow." "Where are you headed, Heather?" Heather replied, "Carl's off work tomorrow, so we'll just hang out at his place. It's nice that he lives alone." Nicole sounded eager to get going. "All right, girls, time to clear out. I need to hit the gym before Tom-Tom runs out of energy." That was pretty much the end of the recording, but after listening to it a few times, I started to put the pieces together. The next day, I called in sick. Luckily, I didn't have any court dates to worry about. That night, I checked Rachel's computer for any secret emails or messages, but I didn't find a thing. I also went through her phone logs, both incoming and outgoing, and came up empty. I even combed through the last 2 months of her cell phone records, but there was nothing that pointed to her cheating. The following morning, I left for work like usual, but instead of heading straight in, I parked a little ways down the street from our condo and waited. It turned into a long stakeout, but just before noon, I saw her leave the house, supposedly heading to the mall. I had a pretty good idea of her destination, so I didn't have to tail her too closely. She parked near the main entrance to the mall, and as she walked toward the doors, I noticed her digging around in her purse. She pulled out a little red flip phone and made a call. Her regular phone is silver, so this was the first time I'd ever seen the red one. She paused at the entrance, glanced across the parking lot, though not very carefully, since she didn't spot me, and then headed down the long corridor inside. She made a right turn into the main part of the mall, stopping a few times to look back, but she still didn't notice me trailing her. I watched as Rachel made her way into Sears, heading straight for the service area in the back. She paused one last time, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and then slipped out to the pickup and loading zone. By the time I got there, I only managed to catch a quick glimpse of a blue Ford Explorer pulling away, with Rachel inside. Figuring she'd be gone for a while, I decided to grab some lunch at the food court. After eating and picking up a couple of magazines to kill some time, I drove around to the back of Sears and parked where I could keep an eye on the pickup area. My car blended in with the crowd, so I wasn't worried about standing out. About 2 hours later, the same blue SUV rolled up to the pickup lane, and Rachel hopped out. She exchanged a few words, flashed a smile, and headed back into Sears. I had no trouble jotting down the license plate number. Later, I went into work and ran the plate through the system. Turns out, the blue Explorer belonged to Tony Reed, the same guy who sold us Rachel's Focus about 6 months back. That evening, I got home at my usual time, and Rachel had dinner ready like always. She was in a playful mood that night, but I told her I had a headache and wasn't up for anything. The next day, I had to catch up on work, so I didn't expect her to meet up with Tony again so soon. But the day after that, I took an early lunch and drove over to the back parking lot at Sears. Right on cue, Tony pulled up, and my wife climbed into his SUV. I followed them to the Rainbow Motel. Tony didn't even have to check in, he already had a key. The two of them walked into room 114 like it was just another routine. I found myself tearing up as I drove back to the office. Later that night, while Rachel was getting ready for bed, I found the red flip phone hidden in the lining of her purse. It was a prepaid phone with just one number saved under BG. That was my wake-up call. I realized I was the last guy left who hadn't been publicly humiliated. At least, I was the only one who actually knew what was really happening. I could sense Nicole was about to make another snarky comment, so I raised my hand to stop her. "Sorry, ladies, but I think it's time for Brian to call it a night. I'm sure you'll have no problem making fun of these half-buzzed guys for a while longer, but I'm not sticking around for it today. Have a good evening. I'll see you at home, Rachel." That stirred up a bit of a commotion. I couldn't tell who was more vocal, the women or the men. Everyone seemed to be looking for some kind of explanation, but I wasn't about to give them one just yet. Rachel looked at me with a straight face and said, "What are you talking about, Brian? Nobody's belittling anyone here. What kind of story are you spinning? We're just having a little fun." I shook my head. "That's not true, sweetheart. You and the other women have been making us the butt of your jokes every week. It's getting nastier every time we get together. It's bad enough that you're all cheating on your husbands, but it's even worse that you feel the need to rub it in our faces." The room went dead quiet. The guys looked completely blindsided, and the women seemed caught somewhere between angry and nervous. Rachel tried to smooth things over. "Brian, we're just here to have a good time. That's the whole point of these get-togethers. If something's bothering you, just say it. You sound like you're mad at the world and taking it out on us." She was trying to calm things down, but to me, it just felt like she was piling on the embarrassment. I looked around and said, "I can't speak for the other guys, but if you want me to air out all our dirty laundry right here, I will. But you'd better be ready for what comes next." Rachel shot back with a smirk, "What dirty laundry? What consequences? You're so full of it, Brian Terrell. Go ahead, tell everyone your wild stories so we can all have a good laugh." She looked pretty confident as she threw down that challenge. "Jeff, Kevin, Peter, before I say anything else, I want to apologize in advance if what I'm about to share causes any trouble in your marriages. I'm not here to air out your dirty laundry, just my own. When you're ready, you can talk to your wives, but I promise you, they're just as involved in this mess as Rachel is." Everyone at the table just sat there, not saying a word. The guys looked like they'd just been hit with a brick, and the women, while a little uneasy, still had that smug look about them. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. Rachel's been seeing another man for months now. She sneaks out of the house, heads to the mall, and uses a secret red flip phone she keeps hidden in her purse to call him. The only number saved on that phone is 4BG, that's Tony Reed, the car salesman who sold us our Focus half a year ago. She walks through the mall, and Tony picks her up behind Sears in his big blue SUV. They usually spend a couple of hours at the Rainbow Motel, then Tony drops her back at Sears so she can come home like nothing happened. Rachel gets to have her fun with Tony several times a week, and then she comes back here and laughs about it in front of all of us on the weekends. She thinks it's a game. "Do you want more details, honey? Maybe next week I'll bring pictures or videos." The whole place went dead quiet. Then, out of nowhere, Rachel lurched forward and threw up all over the table. "Hot dogs, chips, and beer don't look so great the second time around, let me tell you." She spun around in her chair and kept vomiting until there was nothing left. Nicole and Janet rushed over, grabbed her, and helped her back to Peter and Janet's condo. Heather shot me a dirty look as she started gathering up her things. That was a rotten thing to do, Brian. Just mean and hateful. I looked her right in the eye. Yeah, but was it true? She glared at me. Go to hell, you son of a. She slammed the door behind her, leaving me alone with a bunch of stunned, silent guys. I grabbed the hose nearby and started washing down the mess while the other guys quietly picked up the rest of the stuff. Honestly, I hadn't expected Rachel to react like that. I figured she'd get mad or try to deny it, but I never thought she'd get physically sick. Jeff finally broke the silence. Brian, sit down, man. We need to talk. He sounded pretty ticked off. We moved over to a dry table, and Peter brought over the beer cooler. Jeff looked at me, his face serious. What do you want us to know? I mean, what exactly did you find out? I don't know what to do here. I shrugged. Honestly, I can't tell you much about what your wives are up to. I spend all my time tracking Rachel. If you want answers, you're going to have to do the legwork yourselves, just like I did. Kevin handed out fresh beers to everyone. Can you at least give us a hint? Maybe tell us what made you start thinking they were cheating in the first place. I nodded. I can give each of you a little something, but listen, don't go confronting your wives with this. You need to get your own proof, just like I did. If you try to force them to confess without evidence, you're just asking for a world of trouble. Get the facts first before you do anything. Jeff looked down, clearly upset. I don't know if I can do that, Brian. I'll try, but I just don't see how. Peter was getting restless. Come on, Brian, give us something to go on. I took a breath and tried to lay it out as gently as I could. Each of you is getting teased by the women in different ways. They're basically flaunting their affairs right in front of you. Janet's seeing a guy she works with, I don't know his name, but she got a tattoo on her butt for him. His name is hidden in the wing of a butterfly. I think he's Italian. Heather's been meeting up with a guy named Carl who works at the Winn-Dixie. They go to his apartment when he's off work. That's all I know about them. Jeff, I hate to break it to you, but Nicole's been hooking up with a trainer at her gym several times a week. She calls him Tom Tom because, well, he's really well endowed. That's all I've got, guys. None of the guys looked happy. Kevin's face was red with anger, Peter looked like he'd just lost his best friend, and Jeff seemed like he was about to completely fall apart. I can't do it, Brian, Jeff stammered, his voice shaky. Can't do what? I asked, trying to keep my own emotions in check. I just can't say anything to her. I can't confront Nicole. You guys have to do it. All of you. He was practically begging. I tried to calm him down. Listen, I gave you enough to start digging, but not enough to go in guns blazing. Don't do anything rash. Just keep your cool until you know for sure. After what happened with Rachel, the women are on edge. If you push them now, they'll just get defensive. Be smart about it, wait and watch. We finished our beers in silence. Nobody felt like talking anymore. I headed back to my condo to take a shower and clear my head. Peter stayed outside, nursing another beer. I could see the girls were all over at his place, and he clearly didn't want to go home. Not long after, I watched him get in his car and drive off. I had no idea where he was headed. Kevin and Jeff left after I finished my shower. I ended up crashing on the sofa, exhausted. Around 8 that evening, I was jolted awake by frantic knocking at the door. Still half asleep, I stumbled over and opened it. Heather was standing there, supporting Nicole, who was clutching a bloody towel to the side of her face. Brian, get your shoes on. We need to get Nicole to the hospital, Heather said, her voice urgent. What the hell happened? I asked, my heart pounding. Jeff and Nicole got into a fight. Jeff hit her, and she fell, smacking her head on the corner of the coffee table. He bolted out the door before he even realized how badly she was hurt. I tried to assess the situation. How bad is it? Does she really need the hospital? By then, I was already helping Heather get Nicole out to my car. When she hit the table, her eye popped out of the socket. It's just hanging there. We're too scared to try to put it back in ourselves, so we figured it's best to let a doctor handle it. Yeah, that's definitely the right call, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The drive to the hospital only took about 10 minutes, but the first half was dead silent. Then Heather broke the quiet, her words sharp. This is all your fault, Brian. If you just kept your mouth shut, none of this would have happened. Stirring things up like that was cruel. I don't know what you told the guys after we left, but it sure didn't help. We haven't seen Peter or Kevin all afternoon, and I'm pretty sure Nicole wishes she hadn't seen Jeff. I shook my head. Sorry you feel that way, Heather. I didn't cause this. I just brought the truth out into the open. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for cheating on your husbands. She glared at me. Go to hell, you bastard. Thankfully, we pulled up to the emergency room before things could get any uglier. I parked while Heather helped Nicole inside to get checked in. By the time I made it to the reception area, Nicole was already being treated, and Heather was busy filling out paperwork. I just sat there, not sure what to do with myself. When she finished at the admissions desk, Heather called Nicole's parents and asked them to come down, then phoned Janet to give her an update. I tried to blend into the background, but honestly, I was feeling pretty guilty. Maybe I should have seen how unstable Jeff was. I thought he deserved to know the truth, but I never meant for things to go this far. I noticed Heather down the hall, talking on a pay phone, which struck me as odd since she had her own cell. Right then, my phone rang. It was Jeff. Brian, it's me. I need your help, he said, his voice shaky. Where are you, man? What the hell did you do? I'm at the police station. I'm about to turn myself in, but I wanted to talk to you first. Nicole and I got into it about her affair, and I just lost it. Afterward, I went down to the gym and beat up that trainer she was seeing. I hurt him pretty bad, Brian. I think I need a lawyer. I sighed. It's even worse than you think, Jeff. When you hit Nicole, she fell and hit her head on the coffee table. Her eyes messed up pretty bad. We're at the hospital with her right now. Brian, I swear, I only hit her twice, and it was just with an open hand. I didn't punch her or anything like that. I left right after because I was afraid I'd lose control and really hurt her, Jeff said, his voice trembling on the phone. It's too late for that now, Jeff. How bad did you mess up the guy at the gym? I asked, trying to keep my own frustration in check. It's bad, man. Real bad. I actually called 911 for him on my way down here. They'll probably bring him to the ER too. I'm sorry, Brian. I really am. I'll get there as soon as I can, Jeff. Just hang tight. Right then, Nicole's parents showed up at the hospital, and Kevin walked in with them. He asked where Heather was, and I pointed him toward the pay phones, but when he went to look, she was nowhere to be found. He wandered around for a bit, then came back, shaking his head. Nicole's parents went straight in to see her, and I quickly filled Kevin in on what had happened before heading out to the police station. He said he'd stay at the hospital and wait for Heather. On my way out, I bumped into Janet. She told me she'd taken Rachel over to her parents' place. As I was leaving, I saw an ambulance pull up, bringing in a guy who was a bloody mess. I figured that had to be Tom. It took a couple of hours to get things sorted at the police station. They agreed to keep Jeff there until I could arrange bail for him on Monday morning. Besides beating Tom to a pulp, Jeff had also kicked him pretty hard in the groin and, for some reason, smashed his right hand with a barbell. Jeff couldn't even explain why he did that. When I finally got home, Kevin was already there. He told me he'd spent about an hour searching for Heather at the hospital, but she'd disappeared. When he got home, he found that she'd packed up her clothes and personal stuff and left. I told him he could crash at my place for the night. Things were falling apart fast. The next morning, Janet woke us up, demanding to know where Peter was. He hadn't come home, and we had no idea where he'd gone. After convincing her we were just as clueless, Kevin and I went out for breakfast. When we got back, Rachel's mom was at the condo. Rachel wanted to stay with her parents for a while, so her mom came by to pick up some of her things. We packed up enough for her to get by, and I told my mother-in-law I'd bring the rest of Rachel's stuff over next week. She seemed to understand and even apologized for everything that had happened. She sounded like she really meant it. I figured Rachel must have told her parents the whole story. Nicole's parents took her home with them, too. The doctor managed to get her eye back in the socket, but it wasn't working right. The ER doctors were hopeful that a specialist could fix it, but it was going to take some time. I managed to get Jeff out on bail the next morning. He gave me the full rundown of what happened. It was pretty straightforward. He confronted Nicole, she denied everything, he slapped her with an open hand, and then she finally admitted to the affair and told him who it was. As he was leaving, she tried to stop him, and he shoved her. That's when she hit her head, but Jeff didn't realize how bad it was until later. The gym was open late that Saturday, so Jeff had no trouble finding TomTom. Apparently, TomTom made some smart remark, blaming Jeff for not keeping his wife happy. That was all it took. Jeff snapped and beat the guy senseless. He knew why he kicked him where it hurt, but he couldn't really explain why he smashed TomTom's hand with a barbell. On his way to the police station, Jeff called 911 to get help for the guy. When we got back to the condo, Nicole's parents were waiting to pick up her things. Jeff and I helped load everything into their car. Nicole's mom was furious, she wouldn't even look at Jeff, let alone speak to him. He tried to apologize, but it was no use. Nicole's dad, on the other hand, pulled Jeff aside and tried to comfort him a little. He seemed to get why Jeff had lost it. Nicole wasn't coming back, and she was planning to file for divorce. That news just made Jeff sink even deeper into his depression that I didn't see Peter for a couple of days after everything went down. When I tried calling his workstation, they told me he'd taken a week of sick leave. Janet was nowhere to be found either, but I figured she was just going about her usual routine at work. When I finally made it back to my own office, I let everyone know I'd be tied up with some personal issues for a while and got a few folks to cover my caseload. First thing on my list was to reach out to the Burbank Health Club headquarters out in Omaha. I laid out the whole situation for them, including the fact that Jeff was planning to file a lawsuit. They ran 23 clubs across 10 states, so I figured they'd take this seriously. Sure enough, they called me back within the hour and set up a meeting at my place for the next morning. I was bluffing a bit, but I had to try something to get their attention. Later that afternoon, Kevin dropped by. He'd been tracking Heather's credit card activity and saw she'd been buying gas, food, and even a motel room along I-95 heading south. He went ahead and canceled all their credit cards and shut down her cell phone account. As for Carl Baker, the produce manager at the local Winn-Dixie, he hadn't shown up for work and nobody could get a hold of him at home. That's when it clicked, Heather must have called Carl from the hospital pay phone. She must have decided it was easier to just take off than to face Kevin. Honestly, I couldn't blame her. Not long after, Peter finally showed up. He'd been busy digging for answers. Turns out, Janet was having an affair with a coworker named Nick Romano. Nick was married, so Peter called his house and ended up talking to Nick's wife. They arranged to meet at the mall food court the next day at noon. She insisted on a public place. Peter asked me to come along, just in case he lost his cool. He hadn't seen or spoken to Janet since Saturday. That evening, the three of us, me, Kevin, and Peter, went out to Red Lobster for dinner and had Jeff meet us there. The mood was heavy. None of us really wanted to talk about what had happened. Maybe we were hoping if we ignored it, it would all just disappear. Wishful thinking, I know. After we ate, Jeff and Kevin headed home, and I'm not sure where Peter went. When I got back to my place, I called Rachel's parents' house, but she didn't want to talk to me. I spent the rest of the night packing up her things. I knew tomorrow was going to be a long day. The next morning, I sat down at my dining table with Kevin and Kyle Burbank, the owners of the health club, and their lawyer, Phil Mez. I introduced myself. Good morning. I'm Brian Terrell. Let's get down to business. I could tell Phil was going to do most of the talking for the Burbank brothers, which was probably smart. Gentlemen, there's no denying that Jeff Wilson physically assaulted Tom Riker. But I think it's important to look at the bigger picture here, the extenuating circumstances. Phil leaned forward. And what exactly are those circumstances, Mr. Terrell? I took a shot in the dark. Mr. Riker had been openly having an affair with Nicole Wilson for several months, and he wasn't shy about bragging. On the night of the incident, he was taunting Jeff, telling him he was giving Nicole the kind of satisfaction she wasn't getting at home. It's pretty clear he was trying to provoke Jeff, and, well, it backfired. Phil didn't look too happy. Where are you going with this, Mr. Terrell? I laid it out. Jeff Wilson is planning to sue both Tom Riker and Burbank Health Clubs for a 7-figure sum. It's going to be messy and very public. I can guarantee you, a lot of husbands are going to start asking questions about their wives' memberships. And just so you know, we haven't even brought up the hidden video and still cameras in the massage and tanning rooms, unless we have to. I was bluffing hard about the cameras, but I figured they didn't know for sure if I was telling the truth or not. The room went completely silent after I laid out my proposal. It was almost like these guys had heard this kind of story before, none of it seemed to shock them. Maybe that's just how things go in the health club business, but it was all new territory for me. Can we have a few minutes, Mr. Terrell? Mr. Mez asked. I nodded and stepped out, even though I kind of wished I had the place bugged so I could hear what they were saying. But that's not my style. After a few minutes, they called me back in. So, what are you looking for as a compromise? Mr. Mez asked. I kept it simple. Drop all charges against my client, move Mr. Riker to another club out of state, and we'll let the whole thing go. All three of them looked relieved. Mr. Mez just nodded, and we all stood up, shook hands, and that was that. They'd flown halfway across the country for a meeting that lasted less than half an hour, and they seemed pretty satisfied with the outcome. Jeff was thrilled when I told him the news. Unfortunately, Nicole wasn't letting anything slide. She'd filed a civil suit for domestic abuse and didn't seem to care that her own cheating would be dragged out into the open. I knew I'd have to work on that. Later, I headed over to the mall. Peter was already there, sitting at a table with a woman I figured had to be Nick Romano's wife. Two big guys, her brothers, I guessed, were standing nearby and waved me over. The three of us just stood back and watched. Peter handled himself like a pro, he didn't need my help at all. After about 20 minutes, he and Mrs. Marcel shook hands and even managed a smile. Peter and I grabbed lunch together, but he didn't say a word about what went down, and I didn't press him. That evening, I took Rachel's things over to her parents' house. She was there when I arrived, gave me a small, tired smile, and then left the room. I didn't talk to anyone, I just left her stuff and walked out. Time moved on. Nicole refused to drop the charges against Jeff, so we ended up in court. The trial was ugly, and Nicole didn't come out looking too good. Besides the public embarrassment, her eye never really healed, even after several surgeries. The damage was permanent, and that got her some sympathy from the jury that I just couldn't fight. Jeff got sentenced to 3 years, but honestly, he didn't seem too broken up about it. Nicole went ahead and filed for divorce. Carl Baker, meanwhile, got busted for stealing grocery receipts from a market in Pensacola. He was caught with a woman in Mississippi and brought back to Florida to stand trial. Kevin, who had just passed his detective's exam, filed for divorce that same week. Tony Reed got transferred to a Ford dealership in Toledo, but 3 months later, he was let go. Peter never moved back in with Janet. He managed to avoid her for weeks until he landed a transfer to the island of Rota, near Guam, where he took charge of the entire postal operation for the area. Janet stayed in the condo complex, but I'm pretty sure Peter went back while she was at work and cleared out all his stuff. Not long after Peter left, Janet ran into some trouble. 2 men grabbed her as she was leaving work and used an electric sander to remove the butterfly tattoo from her hip. The police never caught the guys, and Janet wouldn't say why it happened. The wound got infected and caused her a lot of pain, and she ended up losing her job for reasons I never asked about. The last I heard, Janet boarded a flight to Guam and just disappeared. Nobody's heard from her since. Peter's doing well these days. He got promoted and now oversees mail service for all the islands around Guam. Kevin moved down to Miami and is working as a detective for Miami-Dade. Last time I checked in with him, he sounded happy. As for Heather, she's locked up somewhere in Florida. While Jeff was serving his time, he started teaching welding classes to the other inmates. Turns out, he was a natural at it, and the program was such a hit that they offered him a full-time job. He ended up getting out after just a year, and now he's doing what he loves. He's not married to Nicole anymore, and as far as I know, she's still got that lazy eye. As for Rachel and me, we never patched things up. Every now and then, I'd stop by to see her, and she'd just give me a little smile before slipping out of the room. Her parents told me she never really went out or showed much interest in anything after everything that happened. After about 6 months of that, I went ahead and filed for a no-contest divorce. Looking back, I think the guys managed to land on their feet, all things considered. The women, though, didn't fare so well. I can honestly say I don't miss those Saturday afternoons in the condo common area, and that's where my story ends for today. If you enjoyed listening, do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Your support really helps the algorithm get my stories out to more folks. And if you're new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It means a lot and helps me keep sharing more stories with you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.